So the Democratic Alliance is adamant it has not ruled out the possibility of bringing a motion of no confidence against President Cyril Ramaphosa. It's in the fallout that subsequent to his firing of the Deputy Minister Andrew Whitfield, who was in the Department of Trade and Industry, sacked last week for going on an unauthorized trip to the United States recently. The DA has also taken a position that it will not vote in support of budget votes by ministers from the ANC who it says are compromised or linked to allegations of corruption. This is namely the Higher Education Minister Mkhuleko Hlengwa and Minister Thembisi Melani from the Human Settlements Department. Let's speak further now with another member of the Government of National Unity, the Inkatha Freedom Party. Bring in its spokesperson, Mkhuleko Hlengwa. A very good evening to you, Mr. Hlengwa. Thank you so much for being on the SABC. Should the President have fired Andrew Whitfield last week for going on that trip to Washington?
Well, thank you much, Tembile. Good evening, and good evening to the viewers. Well, it's our understanding that the President exercised his prerogative consistent with the established rules and standard operating procedures of Cabinet and the National Executive, which members are expected to comply with. And it is therefore in that context that we understand, and not having been briefed obviously, but the understanding is that the former Deputy Minister did not have the President's authorization to actually undertake on that trip. Secondly, when the Government of National Unity was formed as part of the induction and orientation, it was clarified, amongst many other things actually, that foreign travel, including personal travel or party official business travel, above and beyond government travel, is subject to presidential approval.
Right.
And that is the position as we understand it. And the President, as we understand, has acted consistent with that SOP.
And it's a decision that the IFP, as a member of the GNU, supports?
Well, we support the upholding of all standard operating procedures of the work of Cabinet, but we believe that there is a need for parties to engage anew on all matters and to reorient it, and we do believe that the matter could have been handled better. But what we cannot dispute is that, one, this is an established protocol, and secondly, the President was well within his rights, if that is the case, and no other motive is brought to the fore to have exercised that prerogative. That discussion has not taken place within the leaders of parties of the GNU, and it is our position as the IFP that a conversation in this regard, amongst many other issues actually, is actually required. It is long outstanding. It goes to the budget issues, where we have been clear that a new discussion needs to be had in order for us to construct a budget process mechanism that is going to prevent the toing and froing and the challenges that we saw during the budget process.
Pardon me, should then, given his prerogative to appoint and dismiss deputy ministers and ministers, should the President fire the Higher Education Minister, Mkhuleko Hlengwa, who, as of today, now faces a criminal complaint laid by the DA? She's been accused, essentially, even by the Student Congress, I think, of bringing the department into disrepute. Has her stay in Cabinet become untenable?
Well, just last week, actually, the IFP was on record that it is our belief that in the collective interests of the Department of Higher Education and Training, that Minister Hlengwa should step down from that position. And it was a view that was canvassed even by our members of Parliament. And it is my understanding that it will be a view that will also be canvassed when the budget vote is presented in the NCOP and in the National Assembly in the coming days. It is our belief that she does not enjoy the confidence of the sector, nor has the events of the past few weeks covered her in any glory, and we believe that her continued stay in that position is going to hamper the important work which higher education has to do insofar as rolling out services and provision of education, amongst others, to the higher education sectors concerned.
So the position of the IFP, as you're stating, is that the minister should step down. She hasn't done that, has shown no intention of doing that. should it then be the president who now steps in to relieve her of her duties?
Well, the president obviously has to at some point make a determination, because there's also a report from the Minister of Higher Education. And therefore, what I'm saying again is that all these issues in totality of the dissatisfaction, the discord, and the differences which continue to characterize the work of the GNU, the meeting of the leaders of parties is long outstanding. Secondly, the deadlock-breaking mechanism, the GNU clearinghouse in itself needs to conclude on its terms of reference in order for it to be an effective and efficient mechanism to aid and assist the GNU manage its affairs more correctly. What we are concerned about is that there is seemingly a public spectacle and a sort of brinksmanship which is at play without the necessary mature conversations actually taking place around the table. Over the weekend, we had our extended National Council as the party and the NEC, and the position is that President Hlabisa should make an approach to both President Ramaphosa and the leaders of political parties to ensure that that meeting is actually convened so that the outstanding matters can be addressed, and for us to finalize on the mechanisms that have been built into place to actually ensure that the work of the GNU proceeds.
I want to get your thoughts.
Country.
Pardon me, sir, we're almost out of time. I want to get your thoughts on two things. A, the claim by the DA in the briefing on Saturday that the ANC still behaves in the GNU as though it holds an outright majority, so it doesn't consult enough and makes unilateral decisions, at least via the president, Cyril Ramaphosa. And B, the constant locking of horns between the ANC and the DA appears, at least in the public discourse, to have reduced the other parties in the GNU to being mere spectators. How are you navigating that as the other parties? And have they basically sucked out all the oxygen in the room to a point where ultimately the GNU is not big enough for the ANC and the DA to coexist peacefully with the rest of you? Do you see a future where this GNU will run to the end of the term of government with both parties still present?
Well, whilst they continue to fight, we continue to work in the collective interest of the country. We are hard at work. In all the portfolios where we are deployed, the work is ongoing, and we are ensuring that we're putting the country first. And that is why we are reminding them that they need to actually come back to the table, because neither of the two parties enjoys an outright majority. And therefore, as far as we are concerned, the kind of politicking and jostling that we are seeing is not in the collective interest of the country. Secondly, what we must not do is undermine the centrality of the authority of the government structures that are in place for the purposes of trying to outmaneuver each other politically. There's politicking, then there's established protocols. And what we are saying is how both are exercised and played must actually be, done in a manner which is consultative. And that is why we are saying that whilst the president exercised his prerogative, there is still an added responsibility on his part, considering the circumstances and nature of the government, to consult differently and do things differently. That does not mean compromising the exercise of the responsibility, but how the exercise of that responsibility is played out makes all the difference for the collective interest of stability. And that is why we are saying we need to bring these two parties and the rest of the parties to the table to engage on issues, finalize on. There's too many matters that are outstanding. But at the same time, you would have seen President Hlabisa of the IFP at COGTA hard at work, Inkosi Mzamo Buthelezi at Public Service Administration hard at work, Deputy Minister Singh at Environment hard at work, and I myself at Transport hard at work. So whilst there is all sorts of things going on, which may be sideshows and theatrics, it may be the game plan of those parties. What we believe is that the responsibility to serve and lead that has been bestowed upon us actually needs to take priority, whilst on the other side, where issues need to be dealt with, must be dealt with.
Mkhuleko Hlengwa, IFP spokesperson, good to have your time. Thank you so much for being on the SABC.
Thank you very much.